In California in the mid-60s, American society undergoes an unprecedented socio-cultural upheaval, marked by the rise of the hippie movement with its new beliefs and its fresh vision of life and freedom of thought. Amidst this wind of change appears a small man with long hair and a feverish gaze, half musician, half prophet, who declares he wants to change the world. His name is Charles Manson. Soon, his preachings begin to attract a small community in search of ideals, a brotherly group that names itself the Manson family, an ideal that will soon turn into a sectarian and murderous nightmare. Let me take you on a journey to discover or rediscover the strange story of Charles Manson, a character who never ceases to reveal new secrets. Charles Manson, Los Angeles, August 8, 1969. We are at 150 Cielo Drive in Benedict Canyon, a wealthy area of Los Angeles overlooking the neighborhoods of Bel Air and Beverly Hills. There we stand before a beautiful Norman-style house, complete with a pool and guest cottages. The lucky owners of this lovely villa, built in the 1940s by French actress Michelle Morgan, are far from unknown. They are the glamorous couple formed by producer Roman Polanski and his young wife, actress Sharon Tate. The villa, which Sharon affectionately calls the Love House, was acquired only recently. Roman Polanski bought it in November 1968, just about 9 months ago. After their flashy and widely publicized wedding, held at London's Mayfair last year, the couple is now seeking a bit of peace and privacy, especially since the lovely blonde Sharon is expecting a baby. She is 8.5 months pregnant. The due date is near. In fact, the baby's room is already ready. Her husband being held up in London by the filming of his movie Rosemary's Baby, Sharon Tate begins to find her long days spent alone in the vast, empty house increasingly difficult, especially since the final trimester of her pregnancy forces her into a sedentary lifestyle she's not used to. So, with her husband's approval, she surrounds herself with Hollywood's elite of the time, always seeking fun and excess in all its forms. The drinking, the all-night parties, the cocaine use, and the casual hookups in the villa's many rooms follow one another, offering young Mrs. Polanski the artificial company she craves without realizing that most are taking advantage of her generosity and naivety. Among the villa's regular guests are celebrity hairdresser Jay Sebring, Polish screenwriter Wojciech Frykowski, and his fiancée Abigail Folger, heiress to the famous coffee brand of the same name. On the night of August 8, 1969, the lives of these film industry socialites, toasting with champagne and laughing loudly in the living room, are about to descend into a nightmare unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen, and one that would forever leave an indelible mark on the American collective memory. But we are not there just yet. The night of August 8, 1969 is still far ahead in the story I'm about to tell you. To do that, I must first introduce the central figure in this tale because, ultimately, it is his story, Charles Manson. And I can already tell you it's unlike any other. We're now going to take a long flashback back in time to the 1930s, where it all began. Charles Manson was born Charles Maddox on November 12, 1934 in Cincinnati, Ohio. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was only 16 years old at the time, an alcoholic prone to fighting and a runaway since the age of 12 after a violent argument with her father. She worked as a prostitute and led a chaotic life. In fact, she didn't even know who the baby's father was. Shortly after little Charlie's birth, his mother briefly married a man named William Eugene Manson. He agreed to give his last name to his stepson, but William quickly realized he had made a terrible mistake. Unable to give up her nocturnal lifestyle and lead a stable family life, Kathleen Manson leaves her baby in the care of her husband and disappears for days, even weeks, touring local bars and meeting other men. William Manson can no longer tolerate this dysfunctional marriage and the humiliation it brings him, not to mention the child he is left to care for, who isn't even his own. Eventually, he files for divorce. In the meantime, little Charlie, now without parents, is temporarily placed with one of his mother's uncles and aunts. But the elderly and ill couple does not like him and treats him with boundless cruelty and sadism. Meanwhile, Kathleen Maddox is sentenced to 5 years in prison for armed robbery. Upon her release, she is declared unfit to care for a child, mainly due to her alcoholism and other addictions. Her attempt at social reintegration proves difficult, and she cycles through rehab programs with no success. Little Charlie is then taken from her by social services and placed in a foster home in the state of Indiana. This difficult start in life, marked by the lack of family stability, leaves a deep and lasting impact on the young boy's personality. Manson spends much of his teenage years in institutions and later in reform schools for various offenses: shoplifting, drug trafficking, and even sexual assaults on younger boys. When he reaches adulthood, he finds himself behind bars once again, this time for armed robbery and a failed attempt to hold up a bank. The psychiatrist at the correctional facility, who has the chance to speak with him at length, detects deep psychological trauma in this young man, barely 5'4" tall, along with aggressive and antisocial tendencies. He also notes a pattern of deceit, concealment, manipulation, and a certain intelligence geared toward harmful behavior. Charles Manson is released in 1954. The following year, seeking some form of stability, he tries to settle down like everyone else and marries a local secretary. A child is born not long after. But family life, much like for his mother before him, does not seem to suit Manson. He commits a new offense trying to cash a stolen check and lands back in prison. During his incarceration, his wife files for divorce, obtains it, and disappears with the child, whom Manson will never see again. Once released yet again, Manson is nearly homeless. He crashes here and there. Some people host him for 3 days, others for a week, before gently telling him that he's becoming a nuisance and might be better off finding somewhere else to stay. A homeless life, in a way. Charles survives thanks to soup kitchens, sometimes sleeps in state-funded homeless shelters, and when there's no room left, he lies on a piece of cardboard in the street, near garbage bins, only to be startled awake by the garbage collectors at 4 a.m. No, he can't go on like this. His ego is wounded, so he looks for easier ways to make money. That's how he turns to pimping, exploiting underage girls who have fallen under his control. But things take a dark turn yet again. He is sent back to prison for the attempted murder of one of his girls. This time, however, prison brings something new. He learns to sing and play guitar from a fellow inmate who once played in a blues band back in the 1940s. It's a revelation. Music becomes a real passion for the prisoner, who now dreams of one day becoming a singer or musician. In the early 1960s, upon his release, Charles Manson's life takes a decisive turn for the first time. We are now in the midst of the rise of the New Age and hippie movements. America, deep in the Vietnam War, is undergoing an unprecedented socio-cultural upheaval. The new generation wants to break away from the values once upheld by their parents. They seek to free themselves from the conservative straitjacket of prohibitions, strict social codes, religion, and taboos. Physical appearance and clothing play a major role in this new countercultural wave. Men grow their beards and hair long, wear necklaces and bracelets, walk around shirtless in open vests, flared pants, and platform shoes. Women do the same, drawing inspiration from the traditional Indian garments to make their own clothes and jewelry. They wear flower crowns, give up shaving and makeup, and strive to live as close to nature as possible. Even relationships between men and women are turned upside down. Marriage, the foundation of any respectable American family, is pushed aside in favor of free love and even partner swapping. For the Republican establishment in power, this aimless youth is a real nuisance. Instead of supporting their country and being in any way useful to the nation, they openly display their aversion to the war, preach an ideal of peace and love, smoke hashish, play the sitar, and wander along roads and highways, backpack on their shoulders, hitchhiking their way to one music festival or another, especially the infamous Summer of Love, a den of vice and excess, according to conservatives. But for Charles Manson, the ex-convict who spent years in prisons and reformatories, this new society is a golden opportunity. He's found his calling. The idea had been bouncing around in his head for quite some time. A new world with new rules is taking shape, and it's not about to stop. Within the context of the hippie movement and the search for new forms of spirituality, Manson sees fertile ground for recruiting potential followers. And very quickly, his rhetoric against the old-school Republican mindset, combined with his unconventional appearance, draws in the attention of young people in search of meaning, especially young women who are completely estranged from their families and have run away from home. The 33-year-old man begins to emerge as a sort of apprentice guru with magnetic charisma, thanks to his persuasive skills and his ability to manipulate vulnerable individuals. Manson has no formal education, no degree. He spent nearly all of his youth behind bars, but to those around him, he appears endlessly cultured. He takes an interest in various esoteric philosophies, including Buddhism, which he uses to shape his own belief system. He mainly preaches an apocalyptic vision, mixing elements of pagan beliefs, mysticism, and soon, conspiracy theories. Advocating values like peace, gender equality, and a return to nature, the bearded man with long dark hair and an intense gleaming stare easily gathers around him a group of disciples, mostly young women. This, of course, feeds his ego, all the more so because this unusual harem shows him absolute devotion. It must be said that members of cults in general often come from fragile social backgrounds and are looking for an alternative community and a substitute family. Among these young disciples, we can name Leslie Van Houten, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, Mary Bruner, and Lynette Fromm. But there are also men, including Charles Tex Watson, Bobby Beausoleil, Phil Kaufman, and Paul Watkins. At the start of 1966, there are around 20 disciples in total between 17 and 35 years old. The Manson family is born. It is Charles himself who gives it that name, giving the group a paternalistic and protective identity where bonds are strong, rooted, and long-lasting. But practical questions soon arise. They're going to have to find a place to house all these people. Except no one in the group has any money, not even the guru himself. No matter, Charlie will figure it out. He's the father, after all. Wherever we go, we are united, and that's all that matters, he declares, eyes shining before his captivated audience. And eventually they find a place. In early summer 1967, Manson and his family packed their belongings and moved to a desert commune in California, a sort of no man's land far from civilization. Mobile homes, makeshift cabins built with minimal effort, with no running water and no toilets, become their shared home. Hygiene inside is questionable. Living on top of one another, with no comfort and no privacy, doesn't bother them at all. After all, they are one big family now. Among the girls, Linda Kasabian, with her long black hair and lanky frame, is seen as the wildest one. Adopting an animalistic and shameless attitude, she urinates and defecates in front of the others, letting them photograph her for fun. Sometimes she even organizes fart contests. In this mixed-gender atmosphere without rules or boundaries, where hallucinogenic substances soon become common, libertine behavior among the members becomes more and more frequent. The Manson family's communal life revolves around the guru, his sermons, and his pseudo-spiritual teachings. His followers hang on his every word, completely mesmerized. At night, they light a large fire outside while he strums on his guitar. Joints are passed from hand to hand. The atmosphere grows feverish, psychedelic, as the night deepens. As the drugs take effect, they dance in circles, in a trance, but another practical problem appears. How do they eat? Manson, never short on ideas, presents his plan. To meet their needs, the community spreads out during the day. Some beg for change, others sell pottery, paintings, and handmade jewelry, and others steal food from supermarkets. Some girls even resort to prostitution. And that's that. The day's gains are brought back to Manson, who takes the money and assigns tasks again for the next day, and so on. One day, a new disciple arrives in the family. This is Patricia Krenwinkel. She's just 19, her parents have recently divorced and kicked her out of the house. Dark-haired and petite, she especially struggles with a body hair issue that makes her feel insecure. To reassure her, Manson stares her up and down and says, You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Stay with us." On the very night of her arrival in the community, Patricia is drawn into Manson's bed, where he forces her to have sex with him. He finds out she's still a virgin. It's almost become a rite of passage for each new lost girl he meets on the streets of Los Angeles and convinces to join the family. Despite his short stature, unpleasant body odor, scruffy beard, and messy long hair, Manson has a deadly charisma. A die-hard music lover, singer, and guitarist in his spare time, he performs songs he composed himself, sometimes in honor of his favorites of the moment, and they fight over the guru's affection. He, like a proud rooster, is flattered by the jealousy, the rivalry between them to get his attention. The other men in the group are like wallpaper. Over time, and with his growing influence over the disciples, the complex personality of the guru becomes more marked by narcissistic and psychopathic traits. He exerts intense psychological control over his followers, using emotional manipulation tactics to keep them under his influence. He knows they can't live without him and that they'll do anything he asks of them. But Charlie's legendary power of seduction is still heavily supported by a substance that makes life look colorful: LSD. Initially introduced in the 1940s to treat depression, the drug becomes the symbol of the hippie era for its hallucinogenic effects. Though he takes it himself regularly, Manson makes sure to give large doses to his followers to tighten his grip on them and create a dependent environment. During the Summer of Love music festival, LSD is sold with shocking ease. Even ice cream and donut vendors sell it openly in hippie areas of San Francisco and Los Angeles. Musicians like Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix say that LSD completely changes the way they hear sound. Fully aware of the drug's dangers, Manson still uses and abuses it. Once the family girls are completely spaced out, he takes advantage to indoctrinate them, repeating that death doesn't exist, that life and death are one and the same. During these spiritual healing sessions, he even sometimes claims to be Christ. The girls, all naked, place him on a cross and swear they see flames coming from his hands and eyes. These sessions where Manson's girls are unknowingly drugged can last for days, even entire weeks, during which they are deprived of sleep. Totally submissive to their guru-turned-dealer, they become his sexual objects, his playthings, with which he can do whatever he wants. One day when Linda Kasabian, in a moment of lucidity, refuses to give Manson oral sex, he says to her, "I am your father, you owe me obedience." It's obvious that for Manson, women have no value, and that's exactly what he teaches his girls, who are completely at his mercy. They're only there to serve man, to cherish him, feed him, and satisfy his sexual needs in the most primitive way possible. Little by little, sex becomes another method to keep these poor girls under his control. The women of the family become a form of currency. At the start of 1968, the cult moves to a rundown ranch not far from their previous location. The place is called Spawn Ranch. The owner, an almost blind old man, agrees to give the place to Manson and his crew in exchange for sexual favors from the girls. By that time, the madness, coupled with the guru's control, has no limits. He gets an X tattooed, the girls do the same. He shaves his head, they follow suit. Had he cut off a limb, they'd have done the same. In short, they mirror him as if they and he are one. During his trips to town, Manson sometimes approaches young men on the street and invites them to the ranch. "I've got lots of girls back there. You'll have a good time." Besides his activities as a pimp, full-time guru, and drug dealer, Manson continues to chase the dream that's haunted him since his teens: becoming a singer. The second half of the 60s is a crucial time. A new wave is sweeping through the American music scene. Producers in Los Angeles, far from staying behind their glass offices with air conditioning, go out themselves headhunting. It must be said that many people in the scene are broke and can no longer land record deals. Everyone's hustling. It's not unusual for these former Hollywood sharks to recruit new talent straight from the street, just by hearing someone play guitar, and sign them to make money off their backs. Charles Manson intrigues these producers with his small build, hair in his eyes, and guitars slung across his shoulder. He loudly claims to be a good guitarist, a good singer, basically. He promotes himself. By sheer persistence, Manson eventually gets a glimpse of his dream. By pure chance, he crosses paths with Dennis Wilson, the drummer of the Beach Boys himself. In the spring of 1968, Dennis Wilson, driving his car on a road between Los Angeles and Sacramento, sees three of Manson's girls walking under the blazing sun, clearly trying to hitchhike. The drummer picks them up in his convertible and takes them to his house, a villa in El Encanto. He offers them drinks, tells them to make themselves at home, and then heads out to join his band in the studio. When he returns, he finds his house overrun by around 20 people. The three girls have invited their friends. Among the crowd are two men, including Charles Manson. Not at all bothered by this spontaneous mega party at his place, Dennis Wilson is joined that very night by the three Manson girls with the guru's blessing. It should be noted that, as one of the Beach Boys' founding members, Dennis has a lot of money, some talent, but absolutely no seriousness or maturity. He's also addicted to cocaine and LSD. Charles Manson then becomes his personal supplier of illegal substances and of girls. In return, the drummer becomes something like his passport to the fame he's always dreamed of. Dennis Wilson is just as fascinated by the guru's charisma and personality, who becomes a regular guest at his hilltop villa with pool in LA. He listens to his sermons, his esoteric ramblings, and is captivated by them. Meanwhile, part of the family's girls move in full-time with the Beach Boy, who is more than happy about it. In the tabloids, he even boasts about living with a harem of 17 girls. About Manson, who's also crashing at his place, Wilson says, when I first met him, I quickly saw that he had huge talent. We're writing together now. He's sometimes weird, dumb, and unpredictable, but I accept his way of doing things, and I've learned a lot from him. It seems that between the millionaire drummer and the penniless guru, a strong friendship has formed. Thanks to the Beach Boy, Manson now has free access to all the parties of Hollywood's elite. Truth be told, he blends right into the scenery of that openly elitist, snobbish California jet set, obsessed with wealth and appearances. He meets many actors, including Warren Beatty and Aaron Spelling, both known for partying hard. To be accepted in their world of glitter and glam, the guru doesn't hesitate to offer his girls to his new friends on a silver platter. At one of these parties, Dennis Wilson introduces Manson to his own producer, Terry Melcher. Terry Melcher is the golden boy of the era, the typical Californian, handsome, blonde, rich, and famous. He drives Italian sports cars, wears white suits, and gets the red carpet rolled out wherever he goes. Manson plans to stick to him like glue. It's not every day you meet people like this. Melcher, reluctantly or not, agrees to listen to a few tracks recorded by the guru. His songs, though never officially released, show some real talent. Terry Melcher and Charles Manson record other songs together at the Beach Boys studio. Notable tracks include Look at Your Game Girl, Cease to Exist, Sick City, and Garbage Dump. Even better, the Beach Boys decide to cover one of his songs, Cease to Exist. The guru thinks he's dreaming this time without LSD. The Beach Boys are going to do a cover of one of his songs? But despite the temporary success of that single, the honeymoon doesn't last. Dennis Wilson starts to get fed up with the constant presence of the Manson family at his place. They empty his liquor bottles, help themselves to his fridge, walk around naked, swim in the pool, pee in it, and generally turn the villa into total chaos, plus the non-stop noise from these 20 squatters, constantly high or drunk. The house is in an upscale Los Angeles neighborhood, and soon the neighbors grow scared of these hairy weirdos, start complaining about the mess and noise, and threaten to call the police. Overwhelmed, Dennis Wilson, who once enjoyed having these offbeat hippies around, begins to tire of them too, especially since their extended stay has cost him a fortune, around $100,000. Just like that, the Beach Boy finally decides to kick the Manson family out by force if necessary. The cult has no choice but to return to the filthy ranch and put an end to its brief and golden life. A little while later, Manson learns that the Beach Boys have changed the lyrics to the song he wrote, and they covered it without informing him. He is no longer credited as the author. How dare they? Furious, he begins to harass their producer, Terry Melcher. He uses all methods to get in touch with him, calling his agent, sending letters, following him in the streets. But the manager wants nothing to do with this scruffy, disturbed hippie. So he moves and settles in New York to get away from it all. Meanwhile, film producer Roman Polanski and his young wife, actress Sharon Tate, buy Terry Melcher's villa in November 1968. Unable to calm down, feeling betrayed and scorned by a deceptive world he once thought he belonged to, Manson broods over his revenge. Within the family, a shadow begins to loom, like a sinister aura signaling the end. And it is indeed the end. To justify his prophetic visions, the guru proposes the necessity of a conflict that will erase everything from the surface of the earth. One evening, Manson gathers his family around him and declares, "A race war is looming on the horizon, and we must be ready." He preaches an apocalyptic vision that he calls Helter Skelter, inspired by a distorted interpretation of the lyrics from a Beatles song. According to him, an imminent race war between whites and blacks is approaching fast, and the Manson family must play a crucial role in this chaos. In August 1969, the guru orders some of his disciples to commit a series of brutal murders at Terry Melcher's former home, symbolizing his crushing failure. And even though he no longer lives there, it doesn't matter. The people living there now are part of the same corrupt world of the newly rich. Now nothing can stop him. It's the night of August 8th to 9th, 1969. Actress Sharon Tate, 8.5 months pregnant, has been married for a year to director Roman Polanski. She now resides in the luxurious Cielo Drive villa in Los Angeles. The expectant mother, whose husband is in London filming his upcoming movie Rosemary's Baby, is tired of being alone. So she invites some friends over, including celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring, heiress Abigail Folger, and her fiancé, director Wojtek Frykowski, to spend a few days with her. The evening is warm, and the friends are sitting around the large pool, sipping cocktails and discussing their upcoming vacations. "I haven't seen Monaco yet. What do you think?" "What a great idea. I'd rather wait until winter to go skiing in the Swiss Alps. I heard there's a new spa resort." Around 11 o'clock p.m., Sharon Tate and her guests head upstairs to bed. The house is usually monitored by the caretaker William Garretson, but that night he receives a visit from a friend, Steve Parent. The two are in the caretaker's quarters. An hour later, Charles Tex Watson and 3 female members of the family, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, sneak their way to the Tate residence. Around 1 o'clock a.m., all 4 enter the property. They know exactly what they have to do. They start by cutting all the phone lines to the villa. But suddenly the roar of a car engine stops them dead in their tracks. It's Steve Parent, the caretaker's friend, preparing to leave the property in his car. Tex Watson immediately shoots him with 4 bullets from a revolver. Then things escalate. Tex and the 3 girls enter the villa and scatter through the rooms. They notice that all the residents are asleep. Caught in their sleep, they are suddenly bound and gagged. And then the rest is horrific. Sharon Tate, hairstylist Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and her friend Wojtek Frykowski are brutally murdered one after another, with chilling cold-bloodedness. The 3 Manson girls focus most of their attacks on Sharon Tate, despite her pleas, stabbing her repeatedly without regard to her advanced pregnancy. Before leaving the scene, the 4 members of the cult use the blood of their victims to write the word pigs on all the walls of the house. Immediately after committing this horrific massacre, Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel quickly flee the crime scene. Their flight doesn't last long. Later, they are apprehended by authorities. Links between the Tate murders and other crimes committed by the Manson family are then established. During the investigation, police discover a particularly shocking crime scene. They first find Steve Parent, the caretaker's friend, shot 4 times in the head in his car. Then Abigail Folger and her fiancé, completely disfigured, lying on the lawn near the pool. The horror continues inside, where they find all the walls covered in blood and the bodies of Sharon Tate, gutted, and her hairstylist, strangled with a nylon cord, placed side by side on the sofa, their faces covered with towels soaked in their own blood. The coroner's report states that Sharon Tate was stabbed 16 times by Susan Atkins. It was almost as if a barbaric cesarean was performed on her. During their detention, the three Manson girls smile in front of journalists who came to question them. Almost identical in appearance, thin, pale, with long black hair loosely hanging over their shoulders, they repeat like a mantra, completely delusional. Charlie said to do this. Charlie said to do that. According to them, these murders have a symbolic dimension based on the apocalyptic vision their guru had prophesied just days before the massacre of Sharon Tate. He believed that these violent acts would trigger a racial war, his infamous helter-skelter, aimed at incriminating the black community. The Manson family trial, which opened in 1971, would become the longest and most expensive in the entire history of the American justice system. Vincent Bugliosi, Deputy District Attorney of Los Angeles, led the prosecution against Charles Manson and four of his followers. When members of the family were arrested, their trials revealed to the public the psychological hold their guru had over them, particularly through the massive doses of LSD he gave them daily to reduce them to a vegetative state and exploit them sexually. Yet, during the hearings, the girls showed unwavering devotion to Charlie, even protesting and defending him in front of a completely stunned courtroom. His influence on them clearly hadn't faded. For his defense, Manson launched into completely bizarre speeches. He claimed that the lyrics of Helter Skelter and other Beatles songs were in fact a coded message forming part of an apocalyptic prophecy in which racist and non-racist whites would begin exterminating each other to self-punish for the segregation inflicted on blacks. According to him, it would happen like this. After the apocalyptic war, black people will exterminate the last remaining whites. Meanwhile, me and my family will hide in an abandoned mine shaft outside Los Angeles, from which will emerge after the conflict. Then we'll have full power over the blacks and rule the United States. The prosecutor himself was left speechless by such delusion. Manson, for his part, seemed pleased with himself and loved the sound of his own voice. From the other side of the box, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel, their hands cuffed, gave him a sign of encouragement. At the end of a long and grueling trial that captivated the entire American and British media, not to mention the highly publicized appearance of movie stars, including grieving widower Roman Polanski and the whole Hollywood elite, the jury finally retired to deliberate. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was suffocating despite the air conditioners. And then the verdict is delivered. Charles Manson and several members of his family are sentenced to death. Later, their sentences are commuted to life imprisonment when California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Manson died in prison on November 19, 2017. Linda Kasabian on January 21, 2023, and Susan Atkins in September 2009 at the Central California Women's Facility. The appalling and particularly brutal murder of Sharon Tate and the other victims shocked the public and marked the end of the innocence of the 1960s counterculture, which advocated love and peace. Apart from Charles Manson, Tex Watson, and the three girls, several other members of the family were tried later and sentenced to various prison terms ranging from 10 to 30 years, putting an end to one of the most famous criminal cases in American history. Even today, it is difficult to fully grasp the true identity of Charles Manson, as it is complex and hidden. While he had a certain charisma among his often enslaved admirers, he was primarily a sociopathic, dangerous, and manipulative man. Throughout his adult life, his personality was marked by narcissistic and psychopathic tendencies. He used his persuasive power to attract vulnerable and impressionable people into his cult, shamelessly exploiting their vulnerability, youth, and inexperience to turn them into easy bait and later killing machines. By combining his charismatic personality, mystical beliefs, and ability to exploit the aspirations of the counterculture, Manson managed to become the leader of a murderous cult, leaving a dark mark in American history. His impact on popular culture and the fascination he continues to provoke still persists today. In the 40 years behind bars, he remains the American prisoner who received the most fan mail from admirers. Many female visitors came to see him, took pictures with him, some even proposed marriage and offered him wedding rings. Throughout his incarceration, the former guru and murderer granted dozens of interviews, sometimes provocative and hysterical, sometimes mystical and extremely lucid. Those who interviewed him never forgot his gaze, the same one he had when he was still leading the family. Over time, he became a sort of mythological figure, a strong symbol in international pop culture, with some metal music bands even worshiping him. In cinema, many films have drawn inspiration from his story. Notable mentions include Helter Skelter, adapted from prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi's book, and released in 2004, The Manson Massacre in 1972, The Manson Family in 1997, and the Netflix series Mindhunter, released in 2019.